We are
Yes, no problem.
okay,
Okay. ये हमारा सर वो थोड़ा नीचे जा रहा है, इसको थोड़ा ऊपर करो।
नहीं ठीक है,
ठीक है।
हाँ पूरा।
हमने कहा ये 2021 का आखिरी लेक्चर था, हमने कहा चलो।
सर ये आखिरी है?
अरे दिसंबर का तो आखिरी है यार। आई हैव बीन स्पीकिंग अ लॉट, सो आई विल क्लोज 2021 with your lecture.
सर मेहरबानी है आपकी। मतलब सर हम तो अब भी आपसे डरते हैं कि सर से ये पूछे, सर नाराज तो नहीं हो जाएंगे। ये बहुत डर
नहीं,
के आपसे
नहीं।
पूछे थे सर।
भाई यू आर नाउ माय कलीग।
नहीं सर ऐसी बात नहीं है, ए स्टूडेंट इज ऑलवेज ए स्टूडेंट सर।
I always encourage young scholars to become front-line thinkers. That is the Guru Dakshina of a Guru. So your wife will also be joining or not?
Yes sir, she has already joined. She is the first one to join.
Good.
नानी जी का मोबाइल है ना?
हाँ ये हमारा है।
आप ही क्यों करता है?
हाँ,
नानी का
कर
लगता है फुल लग रहा है, बैक हो जा रहा है बार-बार।
हाँ हाँ ठीक है सर।
जगह नहीं होगा।
गुड मॉर्निंग।
सर शुरू करते हैं अभी.
Yes, please do.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. This is the December chapter of our Guru Bani lecture series, which we started in September 2021. It is mainly focused to explore different areas in our literature, not only literature, sometimes it comes under other social science subjects as well. So therefore, we are having a few of the political science students as well for today's session. So welcome to our this Guru Bani lecture series. And if I have the audacity to introduce Professor Abidi, I don't think I will speak sufficiently about him. He was my teacher. He has been my mentor still now. He was the professor and head of the Department of English and Modern European Languages in Lucknow University. And it is said that a professor never retires. It's true. After his retirement, he was invited to Integral University, where he is a senior professor and also the dean of the
Humanities and social science.
Humanities and Social Sciences. Sorry, sir. And he has guided many students to clear the competitive test NET, UGC NET. Many of us are what we are today just because of him, because of his guidance. And what should I say more? I will just pass the screen to Professor Abidi. He will deliver a wonderful lecture, I am sure of that, because it is always enchanting one. It has been, right from our classroom and other seminars. Wherever I listen to his lectures, I just get enchanted and I learn a lot of things. And I am sure our students will also be benefited from his lecture today. And I will also urge our students to participate in the lecture. After this lecture, there will be a question answer session. So do participate in that. This is my urge to our students. Thank you, sir.
Should I start?
Yes, sir.
Dear scholars, students, and professors and colleagues, I am very honored to have been invited by Dr. Santulan Mahanta, who has been my student, to deliver a lecture under the Guru Bani series. I don't consider myself to be a theorist. I do not consider myself to be a scholar, but simply a teacher, a facilitator. I have taught for 50 years. I started my teaching career in 1971. So in 2021, I shall be completing 50 years of teaching. I also did my PhD on contemporary Indian English poetry. Now, as a teacher, I believe that a teacher should be neutral in his discourse on any subject, and he should not impose his personal ideology on the subject. Similarly, he should give, as a teacher, a rounded picture of the subject he is speaking on. Now, in narratology, we have a term called master plot. Master plot means the universal pattern. And this universal pattern is true of all countries, all times, all ages. You put in individual names and you have a novel. So we have a master plot called the Eternal Triangle. Now this master plot refers to the situation, to a stark situation in which two men are in love with the same woman, or two women are in love with the same man. Now in literature, this master plot has been taken up with different resolutions, different denouements, as in The Guide, as in George Bernard Shaw Candida. It's a very popular master plot. But it is a state of conflict. Now, in the last quarter of the 20th century, we had this eternal triangle in literary theory. Mr. Pomo and Mr. Poco. They are in love with Miss Femi. Now, this should be a situation of conflict. But unlike the traditional eternal triangle, this eternal triangle in literary theory was one of harmonious relationship, because all the three had a common minimum agenda. So they did not contradict each other. Mr. Poco did not fight with Mr. Pomo, and Miss Fanny encouraged them both. Now, this eternal triangle of Mr. Pomo, Mr. Poco, and Miss Fanny, in a combined manner, effected a major paradigm shift, because all of them, all the three, had a flair for the officially erased, marginalized, and low people. Now, this was a major paradigm shift, and postmodernism and feminism supported post-colonialism, because remember, post-colonialism without hyphen, I will discuss about it. Post-colonialism, the term post-colonialism or the term post-colonial without hyphen refers to a theory which speaks against economic disparity, inequality, exploitation, oppression. So, overtly, it may not have anything to do with the so-called colonization. I quoted Robert Young's definition in his book, Post-Colonialism, a very short introduction. And Robert Young does not put any hyphen. Without hyphen, post-colonialism is a theory. And that's why any literature which has the background of colonization or not will be called post-colonial literature. Dalit literature, for example, did not have external colonization by the British, but it was a victim of internal colonization by the high caste Hindus. And Dalit literature is truly a post-colonial literature. It's truly a post-colonial literature, and it is a literature of protest and emancipation. That is why it is said that post-colonialism is a discourse of the marginals, Africans, Indians, tribals, Dalits, Aboriginals, queer people, Naaj girl, criminals, or what Fanon calls the wretched of the earth. It is a seminal book, and Fanon is one of the founding fathers of post-colonialism. So Fanon's book is called The Wretched of the Earth. So post-colonialism speaks for the wretched of the earth and gives them a voice. But it is no longer a monolithic discourse. Because remember, the British, we have two kinds of colonies, the settler colony and the invader colony. The settler colonies include New Zealand, Canada, Australia, and invader colonies include India and Africa. But nowadays, I delivered a lecture on it, Australian post-colonialism, because colonialism affected Koreans of Australia, Maoris of New Zealand, First Peoples of Canada, and even Red Indians. Before that, before the British started their agenda of imperialism and colonialism, in 1170, the lordship of Ireland was transferred to England, and since then the relationship of Ireland and England has been one of the colonizer and the colonized. And that is why, as Fanon says, which is true of all the colonized countries, that we have the tripartite panorama on the wheel. In the beginning, the colonized is fascinated with the colonizer. In Australia, the Aborigines thought that these British people are white avatar of their ancestors. So in the beginning, there is fascination. Then later on, we'll see through the real game of the colonizer, there is uneasiness. And the last stage is cultural assertion. In Ireland, as you know, in 1890, we had a movement called Celtic Revival, where they revived Celtic identity, Celtic literature, that's why we say Irish dramatic movement, Irish literary renaissance, Irish literary revival, etc., etc. And with the advent of post-colonial theory, Irish writers are being reassessed in the light of the post-colonial theory. Then Australia was a settler colony, but remember, the white people who settled there administered the convicts, because Australia was developed as a penal colony. So the oppressed white men who were transported from England to Australia to serve their term did not identify with the British heritage, and they wanted their own identity. That's why in Australia we had Zindi Urwak movement, and Judith was a champion of this movement. She was a champion of separate Australian identity, and she made use of Aboriginal culture, etc., etc. So today, with the parameters of Fanon, Edward Said, Homi K. Bhabha, Gayatri Chakraborty Spivak, Mahatma Gandhi, and Gugi, post-colonialism is no longer a monolithic discourse. It has different hues, different shades, and different meanings. That's why tricontinentalism is the term suggested by Robert Young. Anyway, that's a different question, because like other discourses, nothing is pure and simple. Now, I gave you the example of Australia and Ireland. So we now speak of Australian post-colonialism. They also rebelled against the white masters, what to say of Aborigines. And as I said that, as of today, to be truly post-colonial means to be concerned with those who were erased, those who were deprived, those who were marginalized. And Meenakshi Mukherjee says that post-colonialism is an emancipatory concept. It has emancipated people and empowered them. It has given a voice, and it has also resulted in what is called new humanities, not the humanities of the Renaissance times, Studia Humanitas Humanitatum. We have the new humanities under the shattering impact of post-colonialism. We have now women's studies, men's studies, queer studies, Dalit studies, and what is called oppression studies. Studies about those who have been oppressed by the colonial forces. So this is truly a new achievement. Post-colonialism is liberating. It gives voice to the devoiced. But remember, post-colonialism is rooted in what I call analepsis and prolepsis. Analepsis is a term from narratology. It means flashback. And you know, analepsis means flashback and prolepsis means flash forward. Post-colonialism addresses all the issues arising from colonization, and it also tackles problems of neo-colonialism. It talks of natives. It talks of the marginal. Now, that's why I wanted to share with it the process of colonization has stages. And we have proper critical terms for this. You will recall Sir Andrew Freeport, a member of the Spectator Club, in addition. Sir Andrew Freeport, sorry, Sir Andrew Freeport represents the British ideology. We must extend the empire not through war, but through trade and commerce. The British came to India as trader. Then, in order to impress the natives that, look, we are here, we are interested in your culture, we are interested in your scriptures, they started translating Indian Sanskrit texts and other texts. But their real purpose was to loot the golden bird, the Indian wealth. That's why, because remember, as Margaret Atwood says, the idea of colony means the idea of loot. And from this angle, the Tempest is an allegory of colonialism. If you have read the Tempest, you will see how Prospero has knowledge and so he has power. That's why, I developed a kind of formula for students in which I would like to note it down so that when I explain, you understand. The first element in my formula is T cube. T raised to the power of 3. T cube means trader, translator, and thief. Colonial translation was also a means of domination and subjugation. And seminal work has been done by a scholar who in 1974 was a 13-year-old girl with a collection of poems, Liquid Sapphire. Her name is Tejaswini Niranjana. She has done work on this field and shows how translation was also a tool of domination and subjugation. So the opening term in my formula is T cube. The British came to India as trader. I am talking of the stages in the process of colonization, geographical colonization and civilizational colonization. T cube, trader, translator, and thief. Plus, the British are the white man, and there's a poem on it by Kipling, The White Man's Burden. So the second element in my formula is WMB. WMB means white man's burden. It was the holy duty of the British as civilized people to civilize the savages to civilize Indians and Africans. This was their overt noble agenda. And that is why the next element in my formula is PS. PS means Prospero syndrome. Prospero wanted Caliban to learn a language. And for this, he himself did not don the role of a teacher. He requested Miranda, his daughter, that you teach him language. Because Prospero cannot go to every nook and corner of India and Africa. So he planted what is called surrogate Englishman. Surrogate Englishman means he imposed Western education. He imposed English studies. Shakespeare became a means of colonizing the mind of Indians and Africans. That's why the next item is SE. Plus, you see, this English studies was used as a mask of conquest. And there's a book on it, The Mask of Conquest by Gauri Vishwanathan. But this was not a noble agenda. Their real purpose was what is called the colonizer's gaze. They wanted the natives to feel inferior, and they wanted to sabotage or explode native literary traditions, native tongue, mother tongue. And Gughi has given a word for this. He uses the word cultural bomb. They use English studies, they use the English language as a cultural bomb. So, next formula is CB. Plus, because of the request of Prospero, Miranda tries to teach Caliban. And the classic rejoinder of Caliban to Miranda, you taught me language. Now, my profit on it, I know how to abuse you. This is called CC, Caliban complex. And as you will see, Mahatma Gandhi, Chinua Achebe, Ahmad Ali, they all became anti-colonial. Mahatma Gandhi wrote Hind Swaraj while the British Raj continuing. But Hind Swaraj is a, cultural bomb. Yes, Hind Swaraj is a post-colonial text because the term post-colonial without hyphen means speaking against all those things symbolized by colonization. Then after CC we have the word plus AQ. This is from Peter Berry. Adapt. Now, this amounts to post-colonialism. I'll repeat this formula. T cube plus WMB plus PS plus SE plus MOC plus CB plus CC, CB, and then in reaction with we have CC plus AQ, post-colonialism. Now, I developed this formula for the classroom so that my students remember things properly. Now, this formula talks of geographical colonization, it talks of civilizational colonization, it talks of colonizing the mind. But as I told you about Fanon tripartite panorama of the wheel, fascination, uneasiness, cultural assertion. So, a time comes when the game of the British is seen through. Yes, I have, let me tell you, arrangement of formula is mine, but the terms I have taken from different theories to put it together for classroom purpose so that a student remembers all the terms. And Bookey proposed that all the English departments must be abolished because there was politics of language in African literature. And so much so, Gugi, stopped writing in English and he started writing in his mother tongue, Gikyu. He wrote his novel, Devil on the Cross, in his Kenyan mother tongue. Now that's why I said, post-colonialism is rooted in analepsis and prolepsis. Now, post-colonialism is also called colonial discourse analysis. What injustices did they do? How they colonized our mind, how they debunked native culture, how we suffered from loss of native tongues. Everything was colonized. English studies was colonized. Now, while the process of colonization was continuing, we entered the phase 2, uneasiness. The colonized were uneasy and they did not openly rebel, but they started asserting their cultural identity. There is called cultural assertion. Now, from this angle, Kanthapura is a post-colonial novel. Ahmad Ali's Twilight in Delhi is a post-colonial novel. Remember, Hind Swaraj is a post-colonial text because the fountainhead of post-colonialism lay in anti-colonial feelings. That's why, remember, there's a lot of confusion. Bill Ashcroft et al., when they published their book, the word used was theory and practice in post-colonial literatures. And there was hyphen in it, post-colonial. And by the term post-colonial, they meant post-colonial literature means those literatures which came into existence following colonization. And earlier it was called Commonwealth literature, flourishing in invader colonies and flourishing in settler colonies. Since this term Commonwealth had political overtone, that's why after the British departure of the British, this term was rejected, and this new literature which came into existence following colonization came to be called new literatures in English, and focus was shifted from English literature to new literatures in English. But then, following Bill Ashcroft et al.'s book, Theory and Practice in Post-Colonial Literatures, the empire writes back. I have already given you the word AQ, adapt, adapt, adapt. And you know, the colonized became so intellectual, so sophisticated. You know, the native who was colonized earlier, because of Western education, became some kind of Albert Camus and started offering sophisticated discourses. And as you know, many Indians, many Africans are professors of English. They are teaching English there in England and America. They started what is called colonization in the reverse. Now they are intellectually colonizing the West. They are winning. You know, there was a prize called Hawthornden Prize. In England, it lay unawarded for many years. And then Dam More from India was given this prize. So that's why I said postcolonialism is rooted in analepsis and prolepsis. And remember, postcolonialism without colon is a theory, but with colon, it is a historical frame of reference. Post-colonialism means after colonialism. And you see the difference. Bill Ashcroft's book is called Post-Colonial Literatures, whereas Pramod K. Nair's book is Post-Colonial Literature. Any literature which addresses the issues of the marginalized, and as I told you, the worst affected by colonialism were the tribals, aborigines, and that's why today the slogan is to be truly post-colonial is to be concerned with tribals, because they were the original landlords of this earth. They were victimized, they were exploited, and from this angle, Mahashweta Devi is a post-colonial writer. She is also an activist, although she wrote in Bengali and her works were translated into English. Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak translated Mahashweta Devi and introduced her to the West, as she introduced Derrida to the East. Today, so all these issues are there. So remember, with hyphen, the term post-colonial and post-colonialism, they are historical terms. They will mean after the end of colonialism, after colonization, whereas as a theory, as a critical concept, without hyphen, it will mean that there should be no doubt about that. I hope you have understood my formula. Now, as I said, Dalit literature had nothing to do with British colonialism, and Dalits were a victim of internal colonization. But after the achievement of independence, Dalits started writing, and Dalit literature is part of post-colonial literature. Dalit literature is a literature of protest. It speaks for justice to the untouchables. Now, the next point which I wish to point out, then I'll come to its theories. Because remember, post-colonialism is now a concept with myriad hues and colors, nuances, and post-colonialism has been shaped by thinkers such as Fanon, Edward Said, Homi Bhabha, Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak. Now, Gayatri Chakravarti has a seminal essay, Can the Subaltern Speak? Because remember, post-colonialism effected a paradigm shift, and it encouraged what I call centrification of the margin. Those who were on the margin are now in the center. Now, we can best understand the tone and tenor of post-colonialism if we pay attention to what I call strident, loud, shrill, and militant slogans of post-colonialism. Post-colonialism cries to be heard through its slogans. And there are 9 slogans. I give you a definite number so that you remember. Now, the starting point is resist. Second is revolt. Third is assert. Fourth is self-represent. Fifth is rewrite. Sixth is black is beautiful, concept of negritude. Then seventh is decolonize. Then rewrite. Then retrieve. And the last one is globalize. If you understand these terms, you understand the very spirit of post-colonialism. You know, high history, we have British historiography, and now with the concept of, yes, I am repeating my slogans, please pay attention, you can note down, there are 9 slogans. Number 1, resist. You know, resist, revolt, assert, self-represent, rewrite, retrieve, decolonize, black is beautiful, and globalize. Now, many of you must have known Michel Foucault. So he says that when power is resisted, then we have a struggle which starts continuing. He calls it agonism. Even Bhabha says, Bhabha's concept of mimicry, Bhabha says that mimicry, that is imitating the colonizer. And remember Fanon's book, Black Skin, White Mask. Bhabha says mimicry is also a mode of active resistance. And if the British erased us, we must rewrite. And they ignored. So we have British historiography, and then we have the post-colonial agenda of Subaltern History Project. Ramchand Guha, Shahid Amin and others, they retrieve the subaltern history from the below, from ballads, songs, folk stories, and build a theory that before the British colonized us, we had a rich history, subaltern history. That is also a project. Then, rewrite, as I said about women. Pen was in the hands of the male. They wrote about it from their angle. Now pen is in the hands of women, so they write from their angle. So you rewrite. Sometimes I say in my lectures that R.K. Narayan was a brilliant writer, but he was not given the Nobel Prize. Whereas V.S. Naipaul, who always subscribed to the Western view of India, was awarded the Nobel Prize. This is the reason, because R.K. Narayan wrote about Indian India, real India. And that way, R.K. Narayan will also be called a post-colonial writer, because he does not write about snake charmers, about sadhus, about caves. He is a laureate of the commonplace. So, rewrite, as you know, in life and literature, the margin was omitted. So now rewrite, and this has become a major post-colonial agenda of rewriting grand narratives into mini narratives. I supervised a PhD thesis about what John Thiem calls context. That is, Helen Tiffin says of counter discourse. Counter discourse means take a marginal character from a grand narrative and put him or her in the center and correct the view. So, through counter discourse, we have texts. This is called rewriting the canon. From the angle of feminism, from the angle of postmodernism, from the angle of postcolonialism, many British texts have been rewritten. Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe has a savage called Man Friday. He had no language. Now, J.M. Coetzee rewrote Robinson Crusoe, giving primacy to Man Friday and making him a woman. This is a major, and we have a huge corpus. The most rewritten text is The Tempest. It has been rewritten from the angle of Miranda, from the angle of Caliban, from the angle of Caliban's mother, Sycorax. And as I was thinking of Othello in his Desdemona, a high-class white woman marries a Moor. Moor is generally used for North African Muslims, but Othello is shown as Christian. But we have a master plot which is called Othellophilia. Othellophilia means a high class girl, white girl, Brahmin girl falling in love with low class black people. So I was wondering that so far no one has, from the angle of Miranda, Scott Mamaday has rewritten the text. But you can imagine what happens while teaching Caliban. Miranda falls in love with Caliban. What will happen? Because remember, if Caliban, and Caliban is a mask for natives, if Caliban can be educated enough to visit England or America and teach English to the children of Prospero, so someone may fall in love. Miranda can fall in love with Caliban. So this is a separate area, but I mentioned when rewrite, correct the balance. And so Dalits are rewriting, and through this counter discourse, Dalit writers are centrifying marginals of mythology and history, Eklavya, and this is a part of what is called oppositional aesthetics. That's why, I wrote a poem which I thought I should share with you because it has some tenets of post-colonialism. The title, this is a poem written by me. In old age, I have become some kind of a poet. The title of this poem is Being Post-Colonial. High history is eraser of margins. High history is eraser of margins, a dustbin of miscarriages of devotion, justice, and ethics. It acted as a razor. It now has a new cycle of Jair. Eklavya, who gifted his right hand thumb to his putative guru, has now a panther's paw. Panther's paw is the name of a Dalit publishing house. Has now a panther's paw to tear off the veil of hypocrisy. The left-handed archer has now a pen to rewrite history. Being post-colonial, with hyphen or without hyphen. So, to be post-colonial means that you are bound to rewrite, and modern day, that is writers, I call Eklavyas with thumbs. Without thumb, you can't write. But now we have technology. You can dictate with your voice. So Dalit literatures, Dalit writers are now rubbing shoulders with global writers. And the last agenda, the last tenet of post-colonialism is glocalize. Glocal is a portmanteau words of local and global. So it is possible only in the era of post-colonialism that Bama, who wrote in Tamil language, has become a global writer through translation. And she is being read in France, she is being read in America, and the Dalit literature has a voice because it is literature of protest. And remember, the British colonizers, as you see in Kantapura, in the Skeffington Coffee State, that Indian girls were raped. They were deflowered. They were subjugated. They were beaten. They were burned. So now we have Dalit women writers. They all have voice. So post-colonialism gives voice, gives zuban, gives tongue to the deprived, to the subaltern. Now, Gayatri Chakravarti wrote about that seminal essay, Can the Subaltern Speak? And Harish Trivedi wrote a humorous parody, Can the Subaltern Spivak? So the answer is they can not only speak, but they also can theorize. Now, as you see, Edward Said, Homi Bhabha, Spivak herself, they were marginalized and they have emerged as major theorists of postcolonialism. Then, near departure of the British would not do anything. And that's why we have that slogan, decolonize. Language and literature were used to colonize the mind. So the battle cry of post-colonialism is now decolonize. Now, with the departure of the British, English studies in India was decolonized because this was the colonial agenda, to colonize with the help of English studies. So, Professor Harish Trivedi came up with his Panchadhatu model. That is, if you want to decolonize English studies in India, there should be a study of 5 literatures. He talks of classical Indian literature, then he talks of literature in English from other countries, then he also talks of Indian literature in English translation. And now there is a special paper, Indian literature in English translation, and also in paper on Western literary criticism, we have 1 unit from Sanskrit poetics. There are 10 schools and at least 4, 5, 6 are prescribed. And that is how we come to know that the East, India had also a high class intellectual tradition. This Panchadhatu model, it's called Panchadhatu model because it talks of 5 literatures. Professor B.N. Singh, who was my colleague, in one of his studies on decolonizing English studies in India, proposed what is I call Saptadhatu model. 7 literatures, including non-canonical and marginal literatures. Now that trend is picking up. We have now translations into English from marginalized Indian languages, because here also in the area of translation, we have a pyramid. There are certain languages which are favored, who are powerful, like Bengali, Hindi, Malayalam, Tamil, Marathi. But now this trend has been reversed. We have now non-canonical like Bhojpuri, Maithili, and Northeast languages, etc., etc. So remember, it was a long period of colonialism. So everything has been colonized, just as patriarchy, has been internalized. So this colonial mindset has also been internalized. So it will take a long time. But unless you decolonize, unless you develop your own insight, and that's why it was after colonialism that we had this development of what is called nativism, and black is beautiful. That is concept of negritude. Now, I began with marginality. Now, Edward Said's book, Orientalism, which was published in 1978, has been called a source book in the discipline of postcolonialism. But it was not about marginality. It was not about subalternity. It was about the Western conception of the Orient. It was It was a book about othering, how the West, which can now be called global North. The global North has always dominated the global South. So, Said's book was about how the Orient was subjugated and othered. But his discourse generated a proper atmosphere for a study of marginality. And that's why Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak says, and I would like to quote, Said's book was not a study of marginality, nor even of marginalization. It was the study of the construction of an object for investigation and control. The study of colonial discourse directly released by work such as Said's has, however, blossomed into a garden where the marginal can speak and be spoken, even spoken for. So, Said was that's why we talk of Holy Trinity of postcolonialism or Trimurti of postcolonialism. Edward Said, Homi Bhabha, Gayatri Chakravarti spoke. Subalternity, I have already spoken, how the subaltern historiography came into prominence with the onset of postcolonialism as a theory. Now, so we have these three different paradigms, Fanon and Gugi. They are also all these writers. Fanon, Said, Homi Bhabha, Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak, Mahatma Gandhi, Gugi, they are all founding fathers of postcolonialism, because postcolonialism began as anti-colonialism. And it was formulated by those who were products of the Western education. You know, Ahmad Ali was professor of English at Lucknow University, at Aligarh in Calcutta, and he wrote his seminal novel Twilight in Delhi, and he was called the Muslim fourth to the big three, Mulk Rajan, Raja Rao, and R.K. Narayan. He, in his novel, indulges in a critique of colonialism. And that's why, I wrote a paper comparing Twilight in Delhi and Amitabh Ghosh's The Glass Palace, because intertextually they share so many things. So we have post-colonial writers indulge in what is called critical revisiting of colonialism for a proper critique. Now, thanks to postmodernism, thanks to feminism, thanks to postcolonialism, now writers can write in a liberated atmosphere without having any sense of inferiority, and some are writings in their mother tongue. Bhasha languages in India, and through translation, window on culture is opened. So this is a very bright future, and as I told you, postcolonialism also looks through, is rooted in prolepsis, flash forward. Because remember, colonialism is a phenomenon related to imperialism. Now British colonialism may be over, but now we have American imperialism. Everything is imported. Bermuda is imported, dress is imported, etc., etc. Even the body is imported. So it is a long process, and decolonization will result in retrieval of original pre-colonial identity. But then it doesn't mean that we must reject English language. We must reject English studies, because English is no longer the language of the British. It is a global language. It is a language of those who can handle it. It is a bare tool of communication. It is a bare tool of creativity. And I think the ongoing agenda of cultural assertion, of Bhasha languages, of decolonization, of rewriting, of retrieval. I use the slogan retrieve. So, and I also included women in it. Now we have SPARROW. SPARROW is an acronym. Sound and picture archival research and retrieval on women. Many women are missing from history because they were omitted and suppressed by phallic criticism. Now they are being retrieved. And this is one of the feminist agenda, retrieval of past women writers. So, as I said, postcolonialism is a liberating concept. And we now have subjects which we have never heard of. Now we have queer studies, operation studies, tribal studies. And as one of professors in America says, to be truly post-colonial, you have to speak against exploitation. And you have to be concerned with tribals, tribals and aborigines whether they may be now a new concept has been floated. It is called fourth world. First world was Europe, second world America, third world was India and America. Now we have the fourth world consisting of First Nation of Canada, Maoris of New Zealand, Red Indians of America, Kuris of Australia, and Dalits and tribals of India. So that is also the dominant focus of post-colonialism on tribals and on their retrieval of culture, because they have been erased, they have been exploited, they have been dominated. And as you know, we have now ethnic revival, etc. That is all I can share with you. Although, as you know, it's a very amorphous and huge subject. You can go on and on and on. But that is all that I can share with you. If you have any question pertaining my lecture, you can ask. I have given you 9 slogans. I have given you a formula. I have talked about theories. You know, I did not talk much about Homi Bhabha. We have his 4 concepts of mimicry, hybridity, liminality, and ambiguity. Because Bhabha is indebted to Laka. He uses psychoanalysis. And Gayatri Chakravarti is indebted to deconstruction, whereas Edward Said is indebted to Michel Foucault, power, knowledge, etc., etc. But as I said, it is a huge complex, but there should be no confusion about this hyphen business. Santaran, Mahanta, where are you?
So I'm here.
Now I have said whatever I wanted to say. I can go on, but you now, I'm a senior citizen, and I think
Yes, sir.
fit though few. In brief, I have touched upon everything and given you a rounded presentation on postcolonialism. My formula, if you remember, will be
Yes, sir, I
very
do remember. I do remember.
yes.
And in
If
between the
there is
lectures,
any, pardon?
in between the lectures, I was just typing the notes for students so that they can note it down.
You can always ask me. I'm there for you. You know, I have never been to Assam beyond Siliguri. So this was a golden opportunity for me to connect with Assam and the scholars of that beautiful state, because Assam is dear to me because you are there.
So I'm flattered. And sir, actually, it was like attending to your classroom lectures. I again went back to my classroom days, and it was a
I
refresher
told
course
you
for me.
people at the outset that I have been a classroom warrior. I have been a teacher. I always share my ideas with my students that they can improve upon me.
Yes, sir.
If your participants have any question, I can repeat, clarify. But as I said that postcolonialism is no longer a monolithic discourse. It is not only against postcolonialism, it is not only against colonialism, it is also against all kinds of inequality, economic disparity, and suffering. I hope I have been clear to all of you.
Yes, sir, definitely. So participants, if you have anything to ask, you can ask now. Sir is here. And despite his busy schedule, he has consented to deliver this lecture. So please don't disappoint.
Mahanta, I am old enough, so I can't go on speaking. But I
Yes,
said,
sir.
देखिए, she talks of dislocation and hybridity. Dislocation, because colonialism also gave birth to migrancy. So you are dislocated and relocated. So we have first space, second space, and third space. It is the third space which is called hybridity. You know, when you go abroad And when one culture interacts with another culture, that is called contact zone, where you cannot be purely one of first space or one of second space. In America, you cannot be purely Indian. You can never be purely American. So you have to be happy with hyphenated identity, and that is combination of both. That is called hybridity.
So this rucksack diaspora literature, that can be uh, treated as a post-colonial kind of literature.
What?
So this rucksack diaspora, their
Which
literature,
diaspora?
can it be, sir, rucksack, modern diaspora, sir?
Actually, 19th century diaspora is called sugar diaspora,
Yes, sir.
gunny sack diaspora. Then we have modern diaspora, which is masala diaspora. That is, you go not for sugar, but for masala, for high fund. And then we have this, earlier was push diaspora. Now it is pull diaspora.
Full diaspora. Yes,
Same
sir.
name. Earlier was gunny sack diaspora. Nowadays we have rucksack diaspora. But you go to America for high fun. High fun means for high pleasure, marrying American girls. But ultimately, you get what is called high fun. You go
Yes,
for
sir.
high fun, and what you get is high fun. You cannot be
Hyphen.
called American. There is an American sociologist. He uses the word ABCD. America born, confused they see.
Yes. Yes, sir.
I can speak on diaspora in some other lecture. It's a very vast field. But migrancy is an outcome of classic diaspora, or what is called gunny sack. Because earlier, people were driven by poverty. So they put all their material in a gunny sack, in a bora. Understand? And they also put all their religious books, Tulsi plant, images of gods and goddesses, which is called Hindu toolkit. They went away from India with the Hindu toolkit so that they may preserve their identity, and even their houses, localities are Lakshmi Talab and a house for Mr. Biswas. We have the Hanuman house. But that requires a separate lecture on diaspora.
Yes,
Old
sir.
diaspora, new diaspora.
Yes, sir.
Push diaspora, pull diaspora. Nowadays, people are suffering from Disneyland syndrome or American dream, that when you go to America, you will be a rich person. But there also, you are abused by American beggars.
Yes, sir.
The grass is greener from the other side.
Yes, sir.
Any other clarification?
Anyone else? Anyone else who has to ask something? Please don't
Yes,
miss this
somebody
opportunity.
asked me about caste. In Dalit literature, they say, why does man suffer? In Greek times, it was fate. In Shakespeare, it was character. In modern social tragedy, it is the social milieu. Now, vis-a-vis Dalit literature, they say, why does man suffer? Answer is because of caste. They are born in a caste. So it is because of caste they suffer. And I would like to share two lines which I had composed about Dalit literature. It is in Hindi, but Mahanta, you can translate it for those who do not know Hindi.
Sir, they know Hindi pretty much.
Please listen to me about caste. तुम तो दर्द देकर चले गए हौले से पैर ठाकर. You went away, raising your legs after giving us pain, sorrow. हमने रख छोड़ा है उन्हीं दर्दों को अपनी छतों पर सुखा के. We have kept that pain by drying it up, spreading it on the roof of our huts. That is Dalit literature. Caste is very important. Caste, all this discrimination and untouchability, it is because of caste. But remember, there is hypocrisy. Your body is not unclean so far as the high caste is concerned. They would like to have sex with you, but they would not like to eat the food cooked by you. That is the hypocrisy.
So
Any
there is one
other?
more question. There is one more question, sir. She is asking about negritude.
Negritude about the negritude is a term for we are black is beautiful. Negritude means Africans should be proud of their heritage. Because remember, Africa had its own rich culture, richer, but it was called the dark continent. So the concept of negritude have floated, and it is a fallout of post-colonialism. वे काले हैं तो क्या हुआ, दिल वाले हैं. Black is beautiful. They have a heart. They have rich oral tradition, and all the African writers, Amos Tutola, Chinua Achebe, Ole Schwenkar, and others, they are all victims of colonialism. Even the this writer Gumrah, who won the Nobel Prize, he is also a critic of colonialism, because they were the worst victims of British colonialism there. They said they gave you the Bible and took away your land.
Sir,
Any
can the
other-
womanism, sir,
Pardon?
can the womanism be related to post-colonialism?
Yes, that is, we talk of post-colonial women. Post-colonial women, yes, it is, I told you, कि feminism, post-colonialism, and postmodern, they join hands to highlight the marginals, to elevate the marginals, to forego. Women have now, by and by, winning all the male territory. My dear, feminism, if you want to hear me on feminism, Santulan Mahanta has heard me. You arrange separate
Yes,
lecture
sir.
on diaspora and separate lecture on feminism. Then I can discuss. I'm a senior citizen. Today's topic was post-colonialism, and I hope I have been successful in giving you a rounded picture of post-colonialism.
Yes, sir, this was a very enlightening one because we couldn't cover it this much properly. It is there in the syllabus of the 5th semester, but we couldn't discuss it as much eloquently as you did today. So I am sure they are pretty much benefited with it.
And they can ask me any question. You can arrange my lectures on diaspora, my lectures on feminism, but today my focus was on post-colonialism.
So Mithu has thanked you for this feminism too, and she did her PhD on feminist writings. So
You have
she
already
is
heard
pretty much-
me. You tell her
Yeah.
how much I know and how far I
Yes,
can
sir.
go while discussing feminism. Because
Sir, I have-
I'm not a hypocrite.
So
You
I
know,
have cited you.
I have a frank discussion on feminism because there are so many things.
Yes, sir.
And I'm
I
willing
have-
to deliver a lecture on feminism and on diaspora in the next year, that is 2022.
So we are looking forward to it. And I have cited you many a times in my class.
Pardon?
I have cited you many a times in my class.
Yes, you should cite. You
Yes,
are
sir.
my scholar. You have been my student. But
So anyone else?
anything which you have missed in today's lecture, I can repeat it so that you write down. Because I share knowledge with you so that you share that knowledge with your students in the classroom. Don't
Yes,
make
sir.
knowledge barren. Share it with others. Postcolonialism has also focused on what is now called fourth world or global south. And fourth world means First Nation of Canada, Red Indians of America, Maoris, Kuris, Dalits, and tribals. And that's why they are also talking of fourth world literature. This is a new concept. Okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, why it is called Global South?
Because they say global north means rich countries, America, England, European countries, and they have earlier it was called the West. Now in latest political
sir.
discussion it is called global north. And global north or west has always exploited the east, the third world. It's a literary fashion, to coin new words, new domains of knowledge for flourishing and all that,
Mm.
There is recycling of different terms,
Yes, sir.
Anyway, I'm very happy. Anybody wants to ask anything, you can ask.
Anyone else want to ask something?
Devanjani Gogoi, Afsana Shehtaz Ali. Very good. Sneha Pal.
Sir, we are a girls' college, and that's why all the girls are here.
Very good. It's my habit to share the latest knowledge with my students. That's why certain concepts I have given you, fourth word
Yes, sir.
literature, so that you can further explore. So, that's all.
So I guess that is all. No one is asking anything now.
I'm very lucid and clear in my presentation. There is no
Yes, sir.
ambiguity.
No, sir,
I
definitely
speak
not.
with clarity. But the problem is that they should note down my formula, 9 slogans, and so that they may share it with others.
Sir, thank you so much for your nice statement.
Thank you. Who is speaking?
Sir, I am Megakshi Borua
Acha.
from HPB Girls College.
Archana Bora. Yes, I know Bora.
Mrigakhi, sir. Sir.
I am very happy that you have actively listened to me. You've given your time. I'm also very happy.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, you are welcome. I have already told Mahanta he can arrange my lecture on diaspora, on feminism.
Sir, we'll continue this lecture series.
Very good.
So you have to reappear again.
Yes, no problem.
So now,
So thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Now vote of thanks will be offered by Akashjyoti Sharma, who is a lecturer in our department.
Please do.
Akash, are you there?
Am I audible, Khandlan, sir?
Yes, you are.
Okay. On the behalf of our Department of English, HPB Girls College, I would like to propose the vote of thanks. First of all, I extend my sincere gratitude to our to our invited speaker, Professor Abidi sir. Actually, it's an honor and privilege for all of us, and we are genuinely thankful and indeed grateful to have you amidst us, and that you for accepting our invitation and for being with us in this morning, sir. We hope to meet you in person also in next year. We wish you a good health and happy new year in advance. Next, I would like to thank our principal, Madam Dr. Deepa Fukon Borua, for her support and cooperation. Next, I offer my thank to our HOD, head of the department, Dr. Dibbojyoti Bora sir, our colleague Hantulan Mohanta sir, Mongol Singh Rongfar, and Kumud Kuar for their collective effort. Next, I extend my wholehearted thanks to the teachers and faculty, other faculty members from other departments and college who have attended this session, and we really look forward to have you all in our next sessions as well. And last but not the least, I would like to thank all the students from our department and as well as the other department who have attended this session and took active participation. Without their presence, actually, it wouldn't have been possible. So thank you all, and have a
Thank you so
great,
much.
great Sunday ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, once again.
Okay, bye.
Now we are
And
bye,
please
sir.
convey my thanks to all your students for having listened to me patiently and not bothering me with so many questions. As I said at the outset, my lectures are so lucid and clear that there is nothing to clarifying anything.
So one
But
more thing, congratulations on your golden jubilee of teaching.
Okay, thank you so much, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And please thank your principal and your HOD from my side for having given me this opportunity to interact with students of Assam.
Sure,
Sir,
sir. I will.
sir, thank you, sir. Hope to see you in the next lecture, sir. Your lecture is very lucid and vivid. You know, I have got so many points in post-colonial literature, and I am fascinated by this subject also. Sir, thank you, sir. Hope
Welcome.
your good health.
Anytime, Mahanta can give you my number. You can interact
Yes,
with
sir.
me. You can ask anything on phone also. I'm always available. I have been a very student-friendly teacher. I have promoted young scholars, and because I want that they should flourish as scholars, they should become budding scholars, good
Yes,
teachers.
sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank
you,
you, sir. Have a good day.